Buenos nachos and welcome back to the channel. On today's episode we're going to be working on an Xbox One X board. What does it need, you ask? It needs a replacement HDMI port. Now the customer has already replaced the HDMI port on this board. In order to feel confident in offering a 1-year warranty on our work, we will need to remove the port and replace it with another one. And you'll see why in a moment. So that's what we're looking at. We do have a couple of damaged traces that we'll need to rebuild, and this would be the reason why I would remove the port and just replace it with one of ours. I'm unable to tell if there are shorts underneath these legs due to the melted plastic. So we're just going to replace the port with one of our own. We'll go ahead and get some bottom heat going on this board, and that'll aid in the process of removing this HDMI port. Let's go ahead and get our bottom heat going, and of course this is going to go on for a couple of minutes till we're at temperature, because in theory the customer has made it easy enough for us to remove this port since they've most likely already used leaded solder. Now we won't be using bottom heat alone. Of course we'll be using some hot air as well, so we'll go ahead and get that going. I'm going to be using maximum air and probably between 350 and 450 for our temperature. Not quite a temperature yet. It's like we're getting close to being molten on this side over here. Seems like it's getting pretty loose. There we are. We'll go ahead and clear those holes, and then we're going to go ahead and place our new HDMI port in there in addition to rebuilding those traces. We still have the bottom heat going, so that should make it a little bit easier to clear these mounting points, also known as the solder holes. Almost feel like I should just add some low melt solder in here. We'll go ahead and add a little bit of flux to aid in our work. Now looks like we managed to clear one. And another. It's kind of neat, you can see that live time. Well, it's looking pretty good. I'd say we're safe to go ahead and place our replacement port on there. I'm going to remove the board from bottom heat. All right, we'll go ahead and reach on over to our chest of goodies and grab that HDMI port. All right. And we're of course going to want to make sure that this is aligned as best as possible. That way we don't have more difficulties while rebuilding these traces. We'll of course be using some good old-fashioned leaded solder, the SN63 PB37 composition, and of course our Hakko FX951 soldering iron with the soldering iron tip of D1524 soldering iron tip. So I'm going to anchor down one side and then we'll make further adjustments after that. It's looking pretty good. Get this side compressed down. Alright, so it's looking like we have this HDMI port anchored in decently for now. I will go ahead and get the remaining 2 sides filled with solder before we take this thing off the bottom heat. Looks like we're all done with the bottom heat for now. So the first thing we're going to want to do is strengthen the bond of the HDMI port to the board. Because right now we're temporarily anchored in, but we could be secured a little bit better. We have some remnants of some solder paste to use. This is a very thick board with a huge ground plane, so you'll want to sit on these joints for a little while. Yeah, that looks to be pretty good. Let's go ahead and clear off that solder paste that was used and the flux that's around here. And I just sprayed it with some good old-fashioned alcohol. However, you could be using some MG Chemicals 4140A flux remover, which doesn't sound like a bad idea right now, actually, since some of this flux is not coming off. Yeah, it's looking a bit better. All right, let's go ahead and begin the real work. And we have some work to perform. This is where all the magic happens, ladies and gentlemen. So we're first going to begin by scratching away some of these traces, dislodging anything that looks like it's weak. We're going to switch on over to a finer soldering iron tip. We do have a couple to choose from. I think at this point in time, I'm going to switch on over to the T15 BC1. Let's go ahead and get our drill tool going. Yeah, well, that one looks fine, but it's alright. I accidentally scratched away the coating on it. This one's okay. And I think that's about all we need to do in this area. Don't know what was happening over here. Hopefully it doesn't cause us any issues. So we're going to want to use a little bit of alcohol and the brush to kind of clean away the copper debris. See, it really doesn't look like we have a very good joint on these 2 sides, so we'll probably touch those up at the very end. I guess we'll go ahead and use some of this wire, strapping wire that was purchased on Amazon. Seems to be a thin enough gauge, solid core wire. I guess we'll go ahead and get rid of orange. Orange has never really been a favorite of mine anyway. Yeah, there's a certain way to wrap this thing, but I'm not going to do it right now because I'm going to be inconsiderate to the next person that uses it. We'll of course be using some good old-fashioned leaded solder for this portion of the repair. Let's go ahead and get this thing down here so it'll be closer to the heat. And I think I'm going to use a thinner gauge leaded solder just because we bought it for this reason. That way we don't have huge globules of solder appearing on the tip, which probably will still happen. So let's go ahead and just disperse some of this flux. We can get some of this stuff pre-tinned. I think the caffeine is kicking in. So So I think what I'll do is I'll bring this globule over to an area that doesn't really need a lot of work. Alright, let's go ahead and get our wires installed. We'll first start off with this side right here. Guess I don't have a choice but to use these tweezers. I was hoping I wouldn't need to. Now this gauge wire isn't too thick, but it's not to my liking. That should do. We're going to use our X-Acto blade to cut this wire. And of course, we will perform a continuity test after we're all done, as scary as that'll be. But just because it's next in line, we'll go ahead and make sure that we have this thing soldered in. Touched it by accident. It's okay. You know, I'm thinking this might be too thick for what I want to do here. Yeah, this stuff right here, the mechanic fancy thin wire, we'll swap on over to this and see what it does for us. So let's go ahead and undo this. Sorry for wasting everyone's time. Yeah, I'll probably have an easier time with this stuff. Once, of course, we can actually get it over here. And then, of course, we'll lay that flat down. We'll try and align it with the previous trace that was here. It's probably looking like we're going to have to clean up some of this spent flux as well. I just really needed to be able to see what we're doing. Alright, so how is that looking? Is it adhered pretty good? It's not loose on this side over here. Oh. Alright, so now let's go ahead and cut this off. Usually I'd just kind of pull on it, but I don't want to cause any further damage, so we'll just cut it like so. Now we move on to the next one. There we go. Perfect. And I'm thinking at this point I may actually switch to a different soldering iron tip. I think I'll go with the T15C1. Alright, I think we're all set with that one finally. It's looking pretty good so far. Definitely an intense repair. Looks like it's adhered. Now I just navigate it to its final resting spot. really hard to tell if there's enough solder on that, so I'm going to add a little bit more. That's much better. Hold that down so it doesn't move, fly away. Probably shouldn't, but I'm going to add more solder. And let's make sure that this is adhered before we go ahead and make our cut. Go ahead and make our cut now. Well, we're probably close to halfway being done at this point. Let's go ahead and make sure that these other legs are attached before we progress. Probably not worthwhile to do that to this middle one at the moment, but we'll do it anyway. It's because I just took a swig of caffeine that I am jittery. I want to at least try and keep it in that position. This bobbin moved on me is what the problem is. Alright, see if we can do this here. There's some weight on this soldering iron too, that doesn't help matters. If the cord were sitting on top of the table, it probably wouldn't be so bad. Awesome. And that side right there. Go ahead and move this solder over. And in a perfect world, that would have adhered on the first try. Oof, I accidentally touched that other one too. No bueno. No bueno. No bueno. Okay, that one's pretty good. We just need to fix this one. I'm sure it's adhered, but wanted it to look somewhat decent. Alright, that's what we want. Now we can move this one over. Those are looking pretty good so far. We do have some spent flux that we'll have to take care of. And we're of course going to need to cut that off. Alright, we're getting close to that giant globule of solder, so we're going to want to desolder a little bit of that right now before we progress. You of course don't want to remove too much because, well, we need some of this to keep the legs intact. Excellent. So let's go ahead and do that straight shot. Yeah, that almost never happens. And that, of course, never happens where it cuts off for you. Maybe things are looking up. So it's looking like we have 3 more rebuildings and then it's over. The next one also is a straight shot. So now that looks like that works, but I don't think that's going to be good enough. I think it's just because I didn't have enough solder on my tip, so we're going to add a very minuscule amount. I am surprised that happened. Let's go ahead and cut this one. Let's go ahead and clear up some of the spent flux. Just because I can't really see what's going on over here. And I believe we have 2 more. A thicker, probably 5-volt line, and then the last line there for data most likely. And we're looking pretty good so far. The question is when we perform our continuity checks, if everything really is indeed connected. Alright, so we have 2 straight shots to do essentially. We have a thicker wire up there, which I think we will use our previous thick gauge wire. And we'll of course want to smash it down. Man, where are all these fibers coming from? And that should be a pretty good joint right there. I just didn't want to have it too close to this side because you know we're going to have to be working there in a moment. Let's go ahead and cut that. Try and clear this area up a tad so we can see what's going on. Yep, should just be a straight shot with our very fine wire. Alright, I think we're finally all set. We'll perform a continuity check after we've cleaned up all this mess. Make sure that all of these legs are properly adhered. I think we're done soldering, so we can turn off the vacuum. So we have this guy right here. We're good. 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 Also good. I mean, I'm expecting that to be good. And that is, what, just melted plastic maybe? Yeah, it looks like that's what that is. Over to what, resistor? Yeah, R18. Obviously this one's going to be good. Okay, and then right over here. Alright, looks like we're all good. We're going to add some of this conformal coating using a toothpick. We'll use our UV curing light for the next 5-10 minutes, and then of course we're going to go ahead and put this in the Xbox and see what it does. I just finished reassembling this Xbox, pretty much the bare minimum, that way we can go ahead and test this thing before completely reassembling it. If you found this video helpful or useful, please remember to leave us a like and subscribe, and thanks for watching. Until next time. You're expecting the conclusion to this video in this video? Don't be serious. Just kidding. Alright, let's go ahead and power this thing on. And it looks like we did get it going after all. Of course, the customer will need to adjust their display settings because this is going to be like in really low quality. I gotta say that this is probably one of our most difficult trace rebuildings in quite some time. Definitely pretty difficult. Anyways, if you found this video helpful or useful, please remember to leave us a like and subscribe. And thanks for watching. Until next time.